This morning we've had wind all morning, so fingers crossed this is going to stay with us, because this is so much better than what we've had.
After a week at sea fighting to sail through light winds, squalls and lightning storms, we have finally reached the legendary trade winds. Winds that create the stuff of ocean sailing dreams.
We still have over 2,000 miles to sail to reach our tropical destination of Seychelles. But for now, here on the open ocean is exactly where we want to be.
Join us as we make the most of these magical conditions out on the open ocean, hundreds of miles from land.
We are Matt and Amy. We've been living aboard and sailing around the world for 5 years now on our 37-foot sailboat, Florence. We have already crossed 2 oceans together and are now on our toughest challenge yet, crossing the Indian Ocean. I used to wonder what it felt like to be a week without sight of land, to be surrounded by nothing but the vast ocean and sky, at the mercy of the weather, with limited supplies, no internet, no pressures of modern day life, and just one other person to talk to. Well, this is it.
This morning we've had wind all morning, so fingers crossed this is going to stay with us, because this is so much better than what we've had. It's the first time that it seems that the wind is coming from a gradient breeze rather than just being cloud driven, so yeah, hoping that this is going to last us. Although we're sailing along at 6 knots, this is actually the perfect opportunity to catch up on some sleep, because it's actually surprisingly easier to sleep when we're sailing along at 6 knots like this than it is when we're sailing much slower and the wind's light, because the sails slam and it gets so noisy. But now as we're moving forwards, the motion of the boat just gets better, so yeah, lots of hopefully catching up on some much needed sleep this morning.
This is the start of the trade wind sailing that we enjoy so much. The right amount of wind from the right direction, moving us smoothly on across the ocean.
So after fighting our way through light winds, variable winds, to get a lot further south than we thought we'd have to go down to where the trade winds are, it seems today that we have arrived, and this is trade wind sailing. And this is so much nicer than trying to work your way through all the clouds and the rain and the lightning. Here we've got a steady, constant breeze, and we've just got the sails spread wing on wing, so the mainsail out one side, the Genoa out the other side. And we're going downwind, gently in the trades, and all the waves are coming from behind us and just gently, each one pushing us on. This is what we've been trying to get to. It's taken us a week to get down here. We're about 200 miles further south than we thought we'd have to go to get to the trade winds. But it's really nice to be here. From here, we're going to go along due west in these trade winds for the next few days. And then we'll start slanting back up slightly northwest towards the Seychelles.
Deck this morning is absolutely covered in these tiny flying fish. It's the first time we've had a big load of them land on the deck. It's just such a shame.
We could eat them.
No, these ones are too small for eating. We've tried the bigger ones before. Like sometimes they get up to about this size, and they're actually really good eating if you get them while they're fresh. But they're quite fiddly to prepare. And I think they're one of the smelliest fish around. when they've been on deck, you can smell where they've been, and their scales just get everywhere. They're amazing creatures, but they're so difficult to catch on camera because you never know when they're going to pop up. So it's a shame that we only get to show you them when they're dead. There's some scales on the bathroom hatch, and like 3 of them, and all of their scales all around the bathroom and things. There's actually one in here. He's in the sink.
Underneath that hatch.
It's hit here, look.
He's bounced on, you can see his scales.
Oh.
Normal morning routine. We've got to send an email to get our weather downloads and a couple of emails home. And then once we've downloaded the weather via the sat phone, we'll go and have a look at it on the computer and decide where we point the bow for the day. So just downloaded that weather onto the laptop via a grid file, which is a really compressed file, so it doesn't take much bandwidth on the satellite phone. And this is where we are now, this green marker, and we're trying to go west, but you can see there's this area here of no wind, or light wind, just the light blue. We want to stay in the green stuff, so we're just going to alter course and go a little bit further south so that we stay a little bit more in this wind here, because we don't want to get caught in this bit of no wind, because we'll be rolling around with the sails slamming back and forth and it'll be really uncomfortable. But then later next week, so this is now, what, 4 days away? It looks like there's some bigger breeze coming over this side. It all fills in, so we're going to angle slightly northwest towards the Seychelles then, but it does look, the darker red the colours, the more windy it is. It does look like there's a fair bit more wind coming, and over this side as well, it's all filling in across. So we'll have to talk to Des, our weather router, about that, because we can only download a really small area. Otherwise it just takes too much bandwidth on the satellite phone. But he obviously is connected to the internet at home, so he can look at the entire Indian Ocean and gives a better read on what might be happening and whether this is something we need to worry about.
Unfortunately, Des, the guy who's looking at the bigger weather pictures for us from South Africa, has confirmed that bigger wind that is coming, there's absolutely no escaping it. It goes pretty much all the way to the Seychelles. We're probably looking at about 30 knots, but sustained over a few days, and we're just preparing in case it changes and becomes more than that. 30 knots is okay, but anything more than that is not so fun.
I'm just making sure, absolutely sure, that all the hanks on the storm jib are all working nice, because the weather forecast for about 4 days time, 3-4 days time, doesn't look quite so balmy and ideal. Looks like we might have quite a lot of wind, so just making sure we've got everything ready super early, so that if the breeze comes in a bit earlier, we're all ready for it.
But in the meantime, we're enjoying the conditions that we have got. We've had some absolutely fantastic sailing. We've been averaging about 6.5 knots over the last couple of days. Fantastic ocean sailing, fairly flat water and decent breeze. It doesn't really get much better than this.
Life at sea doesn't feel like I expected it when we set out on our first ocean crossing back in 2016. Don't get me wrong, the realisation of how remote, how vulnerable, and how far from help we are is still there, but that fades away on the days that the seas are kind.
Okay, venter is off. Ready if you round up just to one more reef in, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
These days we are much more conservative with our sail plan than when we first set out. We often now put in an extra reef in the mainsail before sunset at the expense of some speed, to make life easier through the night, just in case the wind picks up. This means less worry about squalls for the person on deck and more sleep for the person below.
part of the passage where we're furthest from land is our most treasured. Our bodies have had the opportunity to adjust, our energy levels are back, and the total lack of distractions from where we are and what we're doing allows us to fully embrace the magic of the open ocean.
It's 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm just coming to the end of what's been a beautiful 4-hour night watch. It's such a world away, this weather, from what we had kind of a few days ago with all that squally rain, especially at night, and in those times I could barely see my hand in front of my face, and this evening I've been able to see the horizon all around me. I've been able to see every single cloud in the sky, been able to see the sails enough to trim them just from the moonlight. It's been absolutely beautiful, and the wind's so much more consistent. Only had to sort of adjust the Aries a couple of times, the wind vane self-steering, to keep us on course, and just switch the Genoa over onto the pole a couple of times. So yeah, it's just a complete world away from what we had, but we can really tell how far south we are now because the temperature difference is also huge. It's making it a lot easier sleeping in the cabin. We're actually finding that we need a cover or a thin blanket. And out on deck I've even got my offshore trousers on, which is the first time in, I can't remember, maybe 2 years?
I find it hard to put into words the utter euphoria and elation that washes over me at sea, followed by sheer contentment and an overwhelming gratitude to be alive. It's an intensely addictive feeling, one that will forever have me coming back for more.
Another beautiful day sailing downwind in the trade winds. Difficult to remember how many days into the passage we are, but I think we're about halfway, so it must be about a week and a half. But we're completely settled into life at sea now, and because the weather conditions have been so consistent with the trade winds, we've actually been getting a lot more sleep, so we're both feeling much more awake and alive during the day. We both have a snooze at some point during the day, but when we first set out, we were just like, if you're not on watch, you're trying to be asleep. And now we've just got a bit more energy, time to really just enjoy this, because this is just perfect downwind trade wind sailing conditions. It's absolutely awesome. It's great to be out here. And it feels amazing to be continuing our journey around the world once more. To cross oceans, to carry on sailing around the world feels just awesome. I wasn't saying that about a week ago when we were massively sleep deprived. The wind was doing all sorts of things it wasn't supposed to do based on the forecast, and everything was just tired and stressful. But once you get to the proper trade wind ocean sailing, it's just fantastic. We had so much rain when we set off, and it's humid anyway in the tropics that it was got really damp inside, and we have to have the hatches shut when it's raining and to stop waves splashing in. So we've just got mould has just grown everywhere. I mean, it grows like this normally when we're at anchor in the tropics, but it's just especially bad because we're at sea and we've had to have all the hatches shut.
It has to be the worst it's ever been. We cleaned it before we set off, and now we're just absolutely covered.
So now I've got to clean it all off whilst the boat's not bouncing around too much. It's quite, Amy just said it's quite difficult to get a smooth shot. Because we're bouncing around, it's quite difficult to do anything on board. We've got to do all the normal stuff that you normally do living on a boat in the tropics. We've just got to do it whilst we're bouncing around at sea, because we're going to be at sea for so long we can't leave this until we arrive, because it'll be horrendous. We can get away with doing these things down below in conditions like this because the visibility is so good and there's no threatening clouds around to worry us for having a squall or anything like that. So we can just pop our heads up on deck every now and then, and look around, and we can see literally for 20 miles to see if there's anything coming we need to be aware of, and then we can pop down below and carry on for another 10 minutes with whatever tasks we're doing. What you up to, Amy?
I'm just trying to clear off some of the SD cards and sort out some of the footage that we've taken so far. Neither of us can spend very long at a laptop down below before we start getting seasick, but I'm worried that we might drop a camera overboard or something and lose a load of footage. So we're just doing as much as we can at the moment, but it's going to have to wait till we get there, till we start editing, I think. Cooking on a boat is the ultimate ready steady cook. You basically have to look at which vegetables are going off and then make up some kind of concoction out of those whilst everything on the boat is being thrown around. Every day we try to use up the vegetables that are going off the most in tonight's dinner. So tonight we need to use some tomatoes, some cauliflower and some aubergine. So we're going to have a pasta bake. I'm going to try and make 2 nights so that we don't have to cook tomorrow as well, because it gets a bit difficult in the galley when we're rolling around. It's not so bad on this tack because everything gets thrown into this side as opposed to being thrown across the boat on top of you. And if I look hot and sweaty, it's because I am. It was 30 degrees in the boat before I turned the oven on. Slides to the back of the oven.
Smells amazing! Fish on!
We're just doing the washing up and the line went. So hopefully we'll be able to get this one on board, but I need to clear some space quickly before it gets any closer.
And it's like a mahi. It's a mahi.
Nice!
We haven't had much luck fishing for the last year in Indonesia, mainly catching plastic instead of fish. But out in the open ocean, it seems our luck has improved.
First mahi. They're so beautiful. First fish of the trip.
Yeah, decent one.
Mahi. They're such beautiful fish. I always feel really bad when we take one.
You feel quite good when we eat them though.
Yeah, they're really good eating.
Unfortunately, the fish didn't come until after we'd had dinner. We're having for lunch and dinner, possibly breakfast, for the next 4 days or something.
Yeah. The new squid lures I made up that did that trick.
And of course, a fish coming on at this time in the evening just completely and utterly ruins the start of our watch patterns, because Amy right now, instead of holding the camera, is supposed to be in bed asleep. And instead we're now dealing with the aftermath of the fish.
And we've still got the washing up to do. But we're just starting to run out of fresh vegetables, so this is going to be a very welcome treat for lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
And probably breakfast. This is actually only the second day that we've had enough energy to put out a fishing line and want it to catch some fish. And yesterday the line went, but before we got the fish, I think something bigger got it before we could. It gets a bit rolly on the back deck here, and so we have to tie the fish on because we have lost one before over the side.
So now, standard procedure, tie it on. So just going into our night watches, and we've been having booby birds flying around us all afternoon, in fact the last few days. And I just came up on deck and poked my head above the bimini to have a look out for the weather. And this is what I found.
Oh, sorry guys. Hello. Alright, he's tired, look. It's cute.
It's cute until he poos. And it will go everywhere. Oh, you nearly fell off. Oh no! Oh, then there was one. There was one. Hello.
He's back! He's gonna come back, everyone.
Next time, as we pass the 2 weeks at sea mark, we will take you through 24 hours of our life on board, sharing our offshore sailing routine and how we managed to keep Florence sailing 24/7 between the two of us.
If you enjoyed this, please subscribe and click the bell to get a notification when the next video is released. And let us know what you think of the video. We love reading all your comments.
These videos would not be possible without the support of some very special people. We would like to thank everyone who supports us, and especially our star patrons.